but like my family was hyperliterary, right? My dad was an adjunct English professor for most of my life. He's retired now. And he had a bookstore when before the internet came, right? Um, and he had this brick and mortar bookstore that he had all these books in, and the bookstore only sold books by Appalachian writers, or they were written about Appalachia, and all this other stuff. And when the internet came and basically put an end to that, my dad started, traveling to different places, traveling to book festivals, and um, there would be book festivals, there would be Appalachian crafts festivals, there would be um, Appalachian festivals in general, and then there were also a lot of people who came to Eastern Kentucky to get away from the city and finish their novels, right? So there were a lot of writing workshops that were happening around the state, and particularly in Eastern Kentucky, because it's a great way to get away from everything if you just want to completely detach. You go to where there's no cell phone service. You go to where there's only dial-up internet. And so people were coming to Eastern Kentucky to write these books, and my dad was selling them books, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, the people who were teaching the classes and the people who were trying to write their books, they wanted to read books. So it was a pretty good situation. And so after my dad working this bookstore situation, and also, going to these writing workshops, he eventually became part-time the editor for a literary magazine called Appalachian Heritage. It's now called the Appalachian Review. But yeah, he became the editor for it. And what that meant was that for his quarterly magazine, he would bring home the slush pile. And, even though, I had hardly been reading at all, he was a slow reader, and he couldn't make it through all the manuscripts. So he'd come home and he would throw down all the poetry and short story and essay submissions that he hadn't gone through, and asked us to go through them. And so we would spend some nights, going through these slush piles of manuscripts. And I was trusted, I don't know why, to have an opinion about these things. And, if I liked something, I would put it aside. And if I didn't like it, I would put it over in the reject pile. And, they would screen out the people who they felt like they had to publish, right? The famous people. They would always, screen out before it got to me. But if you were some no-name, you could have been, your manuscript submission could have been, rejected by a pretty young, pretty kid who hadn't spent that long reading. The other thing about this